Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to get weird, and I mean that in the absolute best possible way. We're essentially stepping into a time machine and going back to October 14th, 1968.
Yeah, to sit in a dimly lit living room in Elmira, New York.
Exactly. It's a Monday night. The air is probably just starting to cool down, leaves turning, and it's around 9:30 p.m. We are looking at a very specific slice of history today.
We're unpacking section 442 of the Seth Material, and specifically we're pulling this from the early sessions, book 9.
Which, for those of you following along at home or maybe looking to build up your own library, is published by the New Awareness Network.
Right.
And before we even start the car, which is actually a very relevant metaphor for later in this deep dive, we need to handle a little bit of housekeeping.
Oh, definitely. Got to pay the bills, so to speak.
Well, actually, there are no bills here. This deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We aren't selling you a philosophy today. We are exploring one.
All right, we're not here to convert anyone. We're here to look at the data, the actual transcripts, and see what nuggets of gold we can extract.
Yeah, and we should probably set the stage just a bit for you listening right now. If you happen to be newer to the Seth Material, you might be wondering who the third person in this 1968 living room conversation is.
Right, Seth describes himself as an energy personality essence no longer focused in physical reality, and he's speaking to the author Jane Roberts, while her husband, Rob Butts, is sitting right there taking notes verbatim.
And usually when we cover these sessions, we expect, I don't know, grand theories of the universe, the secrets of creation.
And we absolutely get that today, make no mistake. We get some of the most complex, mind-bending geometry regarding the human soul that Seth ever delivered. We're talking about concepts that completely challenge the very way we use language.
But, and I think this is the hook, this is really why I love this specific session, we also get the total opposite. We go from the literal geometry of the soul to essentially a traffic report.
A very chilling, very specific traffic report.
It's the mundane completely crashing into the metaphysical. We're going to talk about spirals of identity, apple seeds that fall backward into other dimensions, and then suddenly a very urgent warning about a car accident that hasn't even happened yet.
It really highlights the dual nature of these sessions. I mean, Seth isn't just a philosopher floating in the ether. He's a guardian, in a way. He's actively looking out for the people he's speaking to.
So our mission today is to try and bridge that gap. We want to understand what Seth means by psychological identity, which sounds a little dry, but I promise you it's extremely trippy, and then see how that high-level concept actually connects to the very grounded reality of keeping Jane and Rob safe on the road.
It raises the ultimate question, doesn't it? If you completely understand the geometry of your soul, does it actually help you avoid a fender bender?
Or worse. So let's unpack this. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the overall vibe check of the room. Like you said, it's October 1968. Jane and Rob are sitting there, and the session actually opens with something that feels surprisingly domestic. Seth is weighing in on Jane's social calendar.
Right. Seth kicks off by validating a decision Jane made earlier that day, or maybe earlier that week. He says, and I'm quoting here, Rupert's decision not to speak to Dr. Freudenberger's class was a good one at this time.
Rupert being Seth's specific name for Jane.
Correct, and Joseph is his name for Rob. Now, on the surface, this is just Seth saying, hey, good job saying no to that gig.
Yeah.
But if you look closer, it's our first real clue.
A clue to what?
To the fact that Seth is actively monitoring variables that Jane isn't even aware of. He mentions that there's no reason to elaborate right now. He kind of keeps his cards close to his chest initially. But he underlines that it was a good decision.
He's heavily hinting at the physical condition of Jane, implying that she needs to rest, that her energy really needs to be conserved.
It's like having a life coach who can literally see the future. Just don't take that meeting, trust me.
Exactly. It frames Seth as a sort of manager of the asset, so to speak. Because if Jane burns out, the sessions stop. So he has a very vested interest in her saying no to things that drain her.
And immediately after this sort of managerial note, we get this wonderful, genuinely humorous moment. Seth mentions that there will be unexpected word concerning a book.
Oh yeah, and Jane, well, her subconscious mind, or maybe her conscious mind filtering through the trance, immediately jumps on this.
I just love this detail. Jane Roberts was a writer, first and foremost. That was her day job, her absolute passion. She wrote science fiction, poetry, novels, and right after Seth mentions a book, Jane connects it to a dream she had the night before.
She does. And it is not a deep spiritual dream about the cosmos.
No. She dreamed that her sci-fi novel, The Rebelers, was being made into a movie.
The Hollywood dream, the big break.
It is so incredibly human. Here she is, in a deep trance, channeling an entity from beyond space and time who is about to explain the foundational structure of reality, but a little part of her is still thinking, man, I really hope I get a movie deal out of this.
It creates such a fantastic texture to the session. It reminds us that the medium is a real person. She has hopes, she has dreams, career aspirations. And Seth doesn't shut it down.
Right.
He doesn't say, silly mortal, stop thinking about Hollywood. He just naturally weaves it right into the flow.
It grounds us. It reminds us that deeply spiritual people still have bills to pay and ambitions to chase. But it also serves as a bit of a palate cleanser because where we are going next, we need to be grounded.
We certainly do. The difficulty curve of this session is about to spike dramatically.
Okay, let's dive into the deep end. Section 2 of our journey today, the geometry of the soul. Seth pivots from the movie Deal right into psychological identity. And he starts with an analogy that requires some serious mental visualization.
He asks us to imagine a circle of endless spirals.
Okay, I'm trying to visualize this right now. Are we talking about a circle made out of slinkies?
Think more like a dynamic vortex. Seth says, quote, imagine your present self at the center of a circle of endless spirals. You are yourself, and yet one of the spirals that form the circle.
That feels like a total paradox. So I am the center point, but I'm also somehow the edge.
You are the vortex for the circle.
Mm.
And this is a really crucial distinction to make, because we usually think of ourselves as an isolated island. I am here, inside my skin, and you are over there, inside yours.
Right.
Seth is saying, no, you are a focal point, a vortex within a much larger system. You don't need to try and contact the other spirals. You already are them. You fundamentally belong to the structure.
It completely challenges that feeling of total isolation we all have sometimes. We feel like we're just alone in our own heads. But Seth is arguing that our individual identity is just one twist in a much, much bigger coil.
And he actually doubles down on this. He says, the same is true of other portions of your entity. So if you imagine a higher self or an oversoul, that entity is just another vortex in its own respective circle. It's basically circles all the way down.
It's totally fractal.
Precisely. It's the fractal geometry of consciousness. And he makes a really fascinating point that when you do psychic investigations, you aren't reaching out into some empty void. You are gaining assistance from those others who make up the circle of which you are a part. You're just tapping into your own expanded network.
So telepathy or deep intuition isn't like placing a long-distance phone call. It's a lot more like realizing your left hand is touching your right hand.
Exactly. It's an internal communication within the greater structure of the ultimate you.
Okay, but then he intentionally makes it harder to visualize. Because a circle is two-dimensional, and we live in a 3D world, and Seth lives in, well, whatever dimension Seth lives in. So he updates the analogy to help us understand multidimensionality.
Ah, yes, the famous pie analogy.
This is where I literally pictured Jane waving her hands around in the air. Rob's transcript actually notes that Jane drew in the air, eyes open. She's desperately trying to physically trace this shape that Seth is describing, a shape which probably doesn't even quite exist in our terrestrial geometry.
Seth asks us to imagine a superstructure of a circle, put together like a pie.
Okay, I have a pie in my head, an apple pie obviously to fit the theme.
But here's the major twist. He says, each segment is also in itself a globe.
Wait, so the flat slice of pie is actually a three-dimensional sphere?
Yes, and the structure itself, the overall pie shape, is merely an exterior one. He compares it to the multidimensional equivalent of an apple's skin or a pie's crust.
My brain physically hurts trying to picture a pie made of globes.
That is exactly the point. He is actively trying to describe a multidimensional reality using inherently limited three-dimensional language. He's saying that what we currently think of as us, our whole life, our linear timeline, our physical body, is just the skin, is just the crust. There is a meat inside, a profound depth that we absolutely cannot see from the outside looking in.
So if I am a globe slice of this cosmic pie thing, I am physically touching the other slices.
Seth says the circumference of these circles interlap and bisect each other. You aren't separate at all. You're constantly bleeding into other identities, other times, other realities. And these measurements aren't in inches or miles. He says they are measured in intensities and value fulfillment.
Value fulfillment. That is such a classic Seth term.
It really is. And it simply means that existence isn't about taking up physical space. It's about fulfilling a specific potential. It's about the sheer intensity of an experience. The size of your soul, so to speak, is determined by how deeply you feel and experience things, not by how much physical room you occupy.
Okay, hold on to your hats for this next part because now we get to the image that really, really stuck with me. This was the massive aha moment of the session for me. The apple seed paradox.
This is beautiful and incredibly surreal. It fundamentally changes how we are supposed to think about time.
Seth is talking about how these vast identities actually perpetuate themselves. And he uses the image of an apple. A normal apple in our world, it falls off the tree, it rots on the ground, the seeds go into the soil, and a new tree grows up. It's completely linear.
Right. Gravity simply pulls it down, time moves forward. A clear cause leads to a clear effect.
But then Seth says, and I have to quote this because it's so wild, imagine as if the seeds of an apple, instead of falling down to the ground, fell backward into some mysterious dimension within the core of the apple itself.
Let's just pause and really visualize that. You cut open an apple, you see the little black seeds. But instead of dropping them on the table, they fall in. They fall backward into the absolute center of the food and vanish into a new dimension.
And he says that because of the creative abilities of this mysterious dimension, this isn't just cosmic inbreeding, it's not just recycling the same old tired stuff. He specifically says it provides entirely fresh and new elements out of which further creativity could come.
This is a radical, almost dangerous rethinking of cause and effect.
How so?
Well, we always think our past creates our future. The seed falls, which is the past, and the tree grows, which is the future. Seth is suggesting a multidimensional feedback loop, where the output, the seed, feeds directly back into the source, the core, to create something entirely new from within itself.
So my core identity isn't just a straight line drawn from my birth to my death.
No, it's a completely self-generating cycle. You are constantly feeding your lived experiences back into your own core, and that mysterious core is using those experiences to generate brand new realities, brand new versions of you. You aren't just walking down a predetermined path, you are the apple that is constantly eating its own multidimensional seeds to grow larger and infinitely more complex on the inside.
That's wild. It suggests we have this endless internal engine of creation that doesn't actually depend on the outside physical world at all.
Identity has other dimensions that do not appear. That's exactly what he tells them. We're just looking at the shiny red skin of the apple and assuming that's the whole story. But the real action, the real creation, is happening in that mysterious dimension inside the core where those seeds keep falling backward.
It really makes me think about human memory and even trauma. When we have a major experience, a seed, it falls back into us. And depending on how we integrate it into our core, it literally changes who we are right now. We are quite literally rewriting our own internal structure based on how we absorb our own seeds.
That is a fantastic real-world application of the concept. And it means the past isn't a dead thing. It is highly active. It is falling backward into you right in this very moment, changing the fresh elements of your present reality.
And he just casually drops this on them on a quiet Monday night in Elmira. Here, Rob, chew on this multidimensional apple concept while you furiously take shorthand notes.
And Jane is in a deep trance the whole time, probably seeing these insane geometries swirling all around her. She actually mentions later in her own personal notes that she had internal images or visions of the circles and vortexes, but she just couldn't put them into earthly words.
I bet. It sounds like she was staring directly at the source code of reality.
And this leads us directly into the next major section, which is all about relationships. Because if I am a vortex and you are a vortex and we are all constantly falling backward into our own internal cores, how do we actually relate to each other in this physical space?
Right. Section 3. The cosmic triangle.
Seth addresses Rob and Jane directly at this point. He says, "You and Rupert have changed since our sessions began. I've also changed."
Which is super interesting because usually people tend to think of channeled spirits or spirit guides as entirely static beings. Like, I'm the ancient wise master, you are the lowly student, I teach, you simply learn.
Exactly. But Seth openly admits to a massive feedback loop here too. Because I have changed, you have changed. And because you have changed, I have changed.
It's totally symbiotic.
It is. He calls them a mobile triangle. Seth, Jane, and Rob. He says they are eternally allied.
That's a very heavy phrase. Eternally allied. It almost sounds like a cosmic marriage vow that goes way, way beyond till death do us part.
It connects right back to that circle analogy from earlier. He explains that within this vast, multidimensional circle, there are overlapping areas. Jane and Rob and Seth are in a specific psychological location where they actively intersect. Their pie slices are mashed together, so to speak.
And this is where Seth gets really specific about who he is actually talking to in that room. He says he sees Joseph, not just Robert F. Butts.
This is a crucial distinction for you listening to grasp. When we look at our close friends or our partners, we just see their current face, their current personality. Maybe we know their history dating back to childhood, but Seth sees the entire entity.
He says, right now I see you, symbolically speaking, in your terms, as the sum of the various people I have known in past lives as you.
Imagine looking at your best friend across the table and simultaneously seeing a Roman soldier, a medieval peasant, a futuristic scholar, and the guy sitting on the couch right now, all perfectly superimposed on top of each other. That is exactly who Seth is talking to.
He literally says, I see Joseph rather than Robert.
And he adds that the contact is also with your other reincarnated selves that you do not presently recall.
It completely redefines the concept of friendship, doesn't it? Seth isn't just buddies with the guy living in 1968. He's friends with the soul across the span of time. It really makes you wonder about the people in our own daily lives. Are our best friends actually ancient allies?
It certainly suggests that these deep connections aren't just random chance. We travel in clusters. We were allied in the geometry of the circle.
And then he drops the absolute bombshell of the evening.
Oh, yes, he does.
The last reincarnation comment.
He just tells Rob, point blank, this is your last reincarnation, in your terms.
Whoa. Just casually throws that massive existential weight out there.
It is a massive statement to make to someone.
So Rob is essentially graduating from Earth School.
Essentially, yes. Seth explains that at the point of physical death, Rob will consciously realize the sum of his reincarnated selves. He says that right now, Rob just feels like he's finishing up one single life. But at that ultimate point of integration, he will realize that all those dozens or hundreds of other lives were just mere days in his true, overarching existence.
That's actually a deeply comforting thought. That this specific life, with all its stress and its daily grind, the car accidents and the Hollywood movie dreams, is really just a Tuesday.
A Tuesday in a very, very long week. And then you finally wake up and remember the whole week. It really puts our daily struggles into perspective. You don't have to accomplish every single thing right now. You're just living one day of a much larger life.
So we have built up this incredible, sweeping, cosmic perspective. We've established that Jane and Rob and Seth are this powerful triangle, that they are ancient souls, that they are part of a massive interlocking geometry.
Yes, we are flying incredibly high.
And then the clock hits exactly 10:31 p.m.
And the tone of the session shifts completely.
It is genuinely jarring. We go straight from, you are an eternal vortex, to, hey, watch out for that car.
Let's set the scene for this. They take a brief physical break. Jane comes back into trance. And suddenly, Seth isn't talking about spirals or globes anymore. He says Rupert may be invited to go somewhere or do something on a Wednesday shortly, and I suggest that he not do so.
It's so oddly specific. A Wednesday.
He continues, there seems to be a situation that could arise that would be highly unpleasant to him and therefore to you.
Highly unpleasant. That is extremely polite cosmic code for dangerous.
Then he gets very explicit. A car would be somehow involved in a probable accident with another driver.
And he even adds, this seems to be the season for accidents.
This is where the rubber meets the road, quite literally. Why does a multidimensional entity care about a random car crash?
Well, if Rob is in his final reincarnation, maybe they just don't want to cut it unnecessarily short.
That's partly it. But look at the specific details Seth provides. He actually gives a specific list of details about this warning. He's viewing time the same way we view a physical landscape. He can clearly see the massive pothole in the road ahead.
Right, it's basically a bulleted list of red flags.
Exactly. Number one, it involves a cousin or a relative as the catalyst. Number two, exactly 4 people would be involved. Number 3, it won't be a planned trip, it will be sprung upon him. And number 4, the number 6 comes to mind.
The number 6, that is the spooky detail for me. Is it a specific time, a highway route number, the number of people in the other car?
He purposefully doesn't clarify what the 6 means, but he gives very, very strict behavioral advice. Do not drive with anyone else. Rupert in particular should drive only with you.
It's a total lockdown protocol.
It is. He warns them about normality that could catch you unaware. That is such a chilling, evocative phrase.
Normality that could catch you unaware. That's the truly scary thing about accidents, right? You're just driving down to the grocery store. You're just going to visit a cousin. It's totally normal.
Yeah.
And then, bam, your entire life changes in a second.
Now, here is the real expert analysis part of this warning. Why does Seth actually tell them about it?
Well, to save them from getting hurt, obviously.
Yes, but strictly speaking, In Seth's core philosophy, you actively create your own reality. If Jane and Rob were somehow attracting an accident, wouldn't telling them about it might just make them fear it more, focusing on the negative probability.
True. That's the classic law of attraction trap. Don't think about the pink elephant, don't think about the crash.
But Seth frames this entirely differently. He says, we are getting more of this sort of information because Rupert allows it now. He specifically calls it a progression. They are finally learning to get through such information regarding negative probabilities so they can actively avoid them.
So being able to sense danger isn't being negative or lowering your vibration. It's an advanced skill. It's being aware of the probable futures so you can intelligently steer around them.
Exactly. Seth isn't predicting a fixed, unchangeable future. He specifically calls it a probable accident. By explicitly telling them, he actually changes the probability. He turns the unaware normality into conscious caution. It's exactly like seeing a massive storm on the weather radar. It doesn't mean you have to go stand outside and get wet. It means you bring an umbrella or you stay inside.
And the big question, did it work?
Well, let's look at the post-session notes. This is where Rob's meticulous, borderline obsessive note-taking is so incredibly valuable to us today.
Rob writes that Jane's trance was very deep during the session. She actually had trouble coming out of it.
She was almost stuck in that apple seed dimension, if you will. When she finally woke up, she immediately said she felt 4 other people in a car. She physically felt the crowdedness of it.
Which perfectly matches Seth's bulleted description.
And then Rob notes something truly fascinating. Remember the very beginning of our deep dive today, the housekeeping discussion.
Jane declining the lecture gig at Dr. Freudenberger's class.
Rob writes in his notes, Jane was offered a ride there by an ESP class member, and this would have been on a Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
If she had accepted that speaking gig, she would have been in a car with other people on a Wednesday.
So, the seemingly mundane decision she made before the session even started, which Seth specifically validated at the very beginning, was actually the very first step in avoiding this disastrous timeline.
Precisely. Seth validated the decision, saying that was a good one, then an hour later explained why. The accident probability. It connects the entire session flawlessly. The vague intuition to say no to the class was actually Jane subconsciously reading the multidimensional geometry of her own future and seeing a crash.
That is just mind-blowing. She didn't consciously know why she said no. She just felt like she shouldn't go. And it turns out she was literally dodging a bullet.
Or a very fast-moving bumper.
Right. And Rob took this incredibly seriously. He writes at the end, I impressed upon Jane the necessity of her avoiding other cars. I also resolved to be extra careful in my own driving.
They immediately shifted their physical behavior based on the deep dive they just had with Seth. They took the high metaphysical insight and applied it directly to defensive driving.
It's a perfect example of what this entire body of material is really about. It's not just sitting in an ivory tower thinking about overlapping circles. It's about using that expanded awareness to successfully navigate your physical life.
To navigate the spirals safely.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. We started with a very human dream about a Hollywood movie. We went deep into the bizarre structure of the soul, the multidimensional pie, the globes, the backward-falling apple seeds. We learned that our deepest friendships are actually ancient, eternal alliances. And we ended with a very practical warning to stay off the road on Wednesday.
It's a wild journey from the absolute infinite to the immediate present.
What really stands out to you looking at the whole picture of Session 442?
For me, it's the hidden connection between the apple seed analogy and the accident warning.
Oh, how so?
Think about it carefully. Seth said the seeds fall backward into the core to create entirely fresh and new elements. They change the reality from within. When Seth warned them about the car accident, he was essentially tossing a psychological seed backward into their conscious minds. By planting that specific warning, he allowed them to change their own future. He allowed them to create a fresh element, a reality where the accident simply doesn't happen.
Oh, I really like that. The warning itself was a profound creative act. It completely disrupted the linear timeline where they crash and created a brand new spiral where they stay completely safe.
Exactly. We are constantly rewriting our own future by changing our core in the present moment. Every single decision, like declining to give a lecture, is an apple seed falling backward, fundamentally changing the entire pie.
That is a really profound thought. We aren't just passive passengers sitting in the backseat of the car of life. We are the mechanics actively re-engineering the engine while we drive down the highway.
don't go out on Wednesday.
Simple as that.
Simple, yet entirely multidimensional.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. If this melted your brain just a little bit today, good. That means the material is working.
If you want to explore these spirals for yourself, you really need to go to the primary source.
Yes, please do not just take our word for it. Read these books, dive into the transcripts. This was session 442 of the Early Sessions Book 9. You can find it and all the other incredible Seth books at the New Awareness Network website.
That's sethcenter.com/the early sessions.
Go there, buy the books, support the publisher who tirelessly keeps this amazing material alive and available for us to study.
And please, drive carefully out there.
Seriously, watch out for the number 6.
And falling apple seeds.
We will leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on today. If we are all indeed vortices in an endless circle, and our seeds constantly fall backward to create brand new realities, are you actively rewriting your own past right now? Did you just avoid an accident today because of a simple, unaware choice you made yesterday?
Or did you just create a whole new spiral where the accident never even existed in the first place?
Think about it. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll see you in the next spiral.